Okay, we're just having a go at, let me see, show you where we are. So there's the ignition key. Took that little cover off under there, a little cover that goes underneath the dash. You can see that's the bit that controls the pod going up and down. So if you look under here, you can just, if it focuses properly, you can see there. So that's a connector. There is sometimes a cover on this, I believe, but that's the connector that just pulls off. And then there's a screw there, and directly opposite above there's a screw. I've worked out, if I put my hand sort of around there, I can get the screw in, get this screw in this way. Hopefully that's not dropped somewhere where I don't need it to drop. The ignition was actually a bit loose, this switch. I'm hoping with a longer screwdriver I can do the top one. It's just a case of swap it out. Like I say, the reason I'm changing it is because a couple of times it's not started, and then the last time it did it, I turned it back a little bit and it did. So, and the ignition kind of moves a load. There's a lot of movement when it's turned on, and it's not kind of positive in the sort of on position, so I think it's all a bit worn out. And a few people have mentioned, I've got the brake pressure light flashing, and now and again when I'm driving along, all the warning lights come on, and you turn it off and on again and they all go off. So before I start I don't think I've got any leaks. I've had a look for brake leaks, can't see any brake leaks. I'm thinking basically it's a worn ignition. Maybe one of these contacts goes to the brake warning system or whatever, and it's losing contact sometimes. I'm not sure, but I figured before I start chasing other problems, not that I'm bothered that the lights come on, because I know there's nothing wrong with the brake side of things, but I thought I just don't want it to get in it and try and start it and then wiggle the switch and it won't start, because it's on auto. I'm stuffed basically. Unless you've got a big hill, you can sort of you can sort of tow start them, can't you? Just sort of, doesn't do them any good, but you can. But you need to be going a fair bit of speed to get the torque converter to spin the engine, which I don't fancy doing on my own. But yeah, it doesn't look like a bad job. I think I'll replace the slotted screws. I'm going to put sort of crosshead screws in. I'm going to find some better screws, because the chances of getting the slotted screws in with the screwdriver this way around is just not going to happen. They're just going to keep falling off the screwdriver, unless you've got a magnetic one, I suppose. But yeah, just thought I'd share that little job with you. Hopefully it sorts out the problem. Otherwise we're going to be possibly trying to bypass that warning light. It just flashes. It just gets on my nerves. I don't care if it's stayed. I wouldn't mind so much if it stayed on, but it's flashing. So I may end up changing both the brake light switches. I've changed one, which did make the brake lights work. The brake lights still work, but I'm just wondering if that switch isn't brilliant or the other switch. I think they both do the same thing. So it could be the new switch. One of the contacts in the new switch isn't very good. It was a miler one, which ain't the best, but it's what I put on all the Volkswagen stuff and they seem okay. So yeah, the new switch was, I think it's from that company Rare, Porsche parts or whatever, it was about 60 or 70 quid. But I figured it's worth doing. I'll probably keep this one as a spare, because I know it does actually work. Because potentially, as long as you've got the keys, if the new one fails, as long as you've got the keys, you can unplug that and plug it onto the old switch and put a screwdriver in it, take the ignition lock off and start it. So I'm going to still just leave it in the glove box. But yeah, just another little video. The running side of things, let me come out to this awkward position, because I'm kind of stuck upside down. It's the most awkward sort of job to do. Your sort of back is just on that sill, so you've got to flip yourself up. Running side of things, I've put the control pressure back to where it was. It was with it on 40. It wasn't, well, when I checked it before I sort of moved it back up, it was just over 40. So it must change slightly as it won't when it's quite a bit hotter. I got it plenty hot and it was on sort of 45, and at that, yeah, it possibly goes a little bit better, but it doesn't start as nice. It feels quite lumpy for quite a while, even when as it's warming up, almost like it would choke up a bit. It's not too bad now because it's cold, but when it's warm, if it does that, I don't think that's going to be very nice. It might play up. in the hot, might flood itself a bit or something. So I'll put it back to just under 50 at warm control pressure with the vacuum pipes on, and at that it seems to start pretty sweetly now. Seems to start pretty sweetly, and also it seems to go pretty well. I'm not that familiar with how these should drive, because it does still feel, it kind of really kicks in when you get to sort of 3,500, 4,000 revs. Absolutely bloody flies. And if you boot it in, so if you put it in like 2, so it pulls off in 1 and don't go above 2, it goes up to 5 and a bit, 5.2 I think in 1, and then the same similar in 2. So it does. So I think the gearbox is right, because I watched another guy and he was saying it's changed too early, but if you floor it, it does hold it in the gear for quite a while, which is pretty good. It doesn't go into 1 at all, but I don't see as that's a problem unless you really want to hammer it in 1 and then move it to 2. But if you put it in 2, it starts in 1 as far as I'm aware, and it'll hold it in 1 for quite a while. So I don't think that's going to be too much of an issue. I might look at the linkage next time it's up on the lift, but I don't want to try and fix that and knacker all the other gears up, because all the other gears are pretty sweet and it changes pretty sweetly. So this is a new switch. So yeah, you can see I was showing you that sort of bottom screw, and above it there's another screw. And I'm assuming, yeah, it can only go one way up, because it's got that pin which will locate it in the ignition barrel. It looks like a fairly decent quality one. I'll show you the part number off the box. So you can see that that's the part number. So yeah, it can give you cancer apparently. Don't quite know how an ignition switch gives you cancer, but you know, everything kills you nowadays, doesn't it? Yeah, so I'll do another video next time I'm playing with it. I'm going to go and get the emissions set again, just for the fact that I set them when I set it at sort of 40 odd, and it doesn't start as on the button as it did before. Before you just touch the key and it seemed to start, and now it doesn't. And I did play about with the mixture a bit when I was messing about with it before, so I'm going to get the mixture set again. I've decided on setting it to sort of 2.3% CO. A lot of the reading up I've been doing saying 1.5 to 2.5. My carburettor guru, who used to work on this stuff years ago and been doing it years and years, he said do it to 3% because it'll run better when it's rich. But I'm not rich. I don't want to put in loads and loads of fuel in, and a lot of people say sort of 1.5 to 2.5. So before, when it was running when the pressure was at 50 before, I set it at 2.3, and it seemed to run really nice and start really nice at that. So I think I'm going to set it about, you know, I'm going to see where it's happy on the emissions tester, because before I sort of moved it a little bit, and at 2 it wasn't quite happy, and then just a little bit more, 2.3, it just sort of started to purr and just sound really happy. So it's like anything, you can have all the specs you like in the world, but it's an old engine, everything's a little bit worn, you know, I've put new parts on and new rebuild kit and stuff and on the whir and the fuel distributor, but there's no guarantee. It's all, you know, like I say, I've calibrated the warm cold control pressure and the warm control pressure and the system pressure, as it all seems to be as it should be now, within the sort of limits they give you, which are quite wide sometimes, to be fair. So I'm hoping that sort of sorts it. But like I say, before I mess with it, I should have just left it. Before I mess with it, it was running really sweet and starting really sweet. It starts fine now, but I think I'd need to just double check the mixture, because apparently that affects how it sort of moves up the revs as well, because obviously the plate starts at a certain place, and that gives a certain amount of fuel. Well, opens ejectors, allows a certain amount of fuel through. So if it's starting earlier, it'll be letting less fuel in earlier on. If it's richer, it'll be letting more fuel in, but I don't know if that means it weakens off when it opens fully. I'm not sure, but I know it does. The mixture, some people say the mixture doesn't affect it, but I'm pretty sure it does a little bit. It's bound to, because the starting point of the curve of the fuel injection is changing. You know, it's going to put more in sooner or later, depending on, even though it's only a fraction, it's going to make a slight bit of difference. So I'm going to do that. But failing that, I'm just driving it a bit more. I'm on about 450 now. I'm nearly up to 500 miles. So then when I get up to 500, I'm going to take the sump off and seal the sump on like we talked about without the gasket. I'm not bothering putting another gasket. I'm not wasting my time. Can't see that's ever going to seal. Might do for a bit, but it's going to leak eventually. So I figure if I seal it on, what's the worst that can happen? It can't leak any more than it is doing now. It's going to be better. So yeah, there's that to do. The steering is, I think the steering's a bit heavy, but then I've watched people driving them on videos and they've said the steering is heavier than you'd imagine for a big car, because it's meant to have feel. It's not horrendous, but I'd like it to be a bit lighter, but it's probably okay. The issue is, you know, when you drive them all the time, somebody brings me a Volkswagen, I drive it and say, yeah, your steering's too heavy. But they wouldn't know. If you're not driven other ones, you wouldn't know. So seeing as this is the only one I've ever had and driven, I'm not saying I might not buy another one. You never know if a cheap one comes up. We're sucker for punishment. It's a bit of an addiction, this, isn't it? It's I'm just looking at all the little bits I've got to tidy up and do on the interior and stuff, and it's, you know, a bit of a never-ending story, but I'm enjoying driving it. I'm getting used to sort of driving the auto now. I'm finding I sort of drive it, generally when I'm driving, I'm sort of driving, I don't really take it much above 2,000 revs. When you're driving in traffic and stuff, you don't need to really. Odd bit of booting it out of a junction or whatever, but I sort of had it to 5.2 in, I think it was first, and then it dropped into second, and then I had to take my foot off. But it does seem to bloody fly when you really put your foot down. But I've only been sort of locally, just on the loop road, where you get up to about 50, 60 if you're pushing it, 80 if you're being really silly, but that's breaking the law. So clearly I've not been doing that, have I? Yeah, I think the next, soon I'll probably go and see my daughter sort of lives Leicester way, so she lives about 40 odd miles away, and it's quite a nice run down the A46, and then there's a bit of windy country, sort of nice roads where you can get your toe down a little bit, 60 limits. So I think I'll take it, that'll be my first long trip. I'll probably video that as well, actually. I'll probably set my camera up. I've got a bit better tripod thing for the camera, and a suckable one that sits on the window, so I'll probably set that up and video it and maybe speed some of it up. You don't want to watch me driving along for hours, but it takes about an hour to get there, but I'll probably video it and, you know, get my toe down and hopefully get the speedo in it as well, so you can see how it sort of picks up and stuff. But yeah, generally I'm really happy with it. I mean, fuel wise, I just keep putting fuel in it every now and again. I just keep feeding the monster, but it doesn't seem horrendous. I suppose it depends what you're used to driving. I'm used to driving my TDI Scirocco, which does about 60 to the gallon, but I have got an old camper which does best part of 20 round town, 20 odd on a run if you're lucky, and this doesn't seem any worse to me. Coming to work and back, and it's the same journey I do all the time, doesn't seem much worse. One thing I am going to have to do, I want to sort out the illumination out for that. Nothing lights up here, nothing at all. I'm not really looking forward to taking it apart. I know you can take these side panels off. I've had them off to put that sort of temperature gauge in, so I might have a look at that. Even if I just wire some extra bulbs in, you know, if I can't make the original stuff work from the switch, I might wire something up from the ignition or whatever. Because the dash lights come on, they come on anyway. They come on even without the headlights on, which doesn't seem right to me, but maybe that's how they are. So I can always, if I can find that feed, I can just run that to it. Because at night time you just can't see the heaters. I mean, I know where the controls are and I don't tend to move it, but you know, one thing it does do as well, which I think is to do with something, I've heard somebody mention it on one of them videos, Australian guy. When you put it, you know, the heaters are on, I leave it on that one, you put it on that one, the engine speeds up, and I think that's because that's to do with the aircon. That's a light demister with the AC on, so it revs the engine to take the load off the AC, but my AC is not on, so I never put it on that. But it's kind of almost like a choke, so I don't quite know what that does. It must let air in, or there must be a vacuum pipe or something, or maybe something's broke. But I just don't put it on that. I just leave it on eco and it's fine. It warms up ever so quick and cleans the screen and whatever. I still got, you can see the condensation in the back. Something's leaking in the back. I've got to, I think what first thing I'm going to do is take those covers around the back tailgate. Pretty sure it's a tailgate because it's wet at the carpet at the back. If it was a windows, that you wouldn't necessarily get it in the boot as much. I'm going to take them panels off all the way around the boot. Hopefully they won't fall apart, and seal the window from the inside because it's like a bonded. Looks like it's bonded, glued in, bonded in. I'm going to seal the window round, and then have a look at the wiper grommet as well. Because I think I might have a bit. I've already tried to seal that up, but I might see if I can make a grommet or get the right grommet to go through it to sort that out. I've got a new boot seal. I don't think it's a boot seal. The boot seal's a bit chewed up in a few places, but I don't think it's a boot seal. It's not horrendous. It's not getting a lot of water in, and it kind of seems to make its way to the battery tray and just drip out the bottom of the battery tray. So it's not the end of the world, and in the summer it's not going to be a problem, but it's just something I'd like to sort out. I'm not taking windows out and stuff. I might do when I paint it, but I'm probably not going to, might not even take the windows out when I paint it, to be fair. If there's no rot around them, I might just wire them and do it that way. But I have got to clean the interior up at some point and shampoo all the carpets. I've got like a nice wet and dry, and I think all the carpets and stuff will actually clean up quite well. I might get some new black ones. They say 9 to 8 on them. I'm probably going to keep the black floor ones because beige floor ones are, you know, they're actually not bad. The original beige floor one isn't bad. And I need to sort the seat belts out because they're just they're just crap. This one stays out, but it's not just about long enough to go around me, and then sometimes it pulls in and it doesn't. And the passenger one's not much better. So I'm going to get a pair of seat belts for it, but nothing's essential yet. I need to sort out the electric seats as well, but you know, you can see the rest of my life's going to be making videos on how I'm fixing the Porsche. But you know, there's worse things to be doing, isn't it? Could be a politician. Right, if you're enjoying the vid, subscribe, give me some likes. If you know anything I don't know, or if I've said something that's not quite right, or you know a better way of doing something I'm talking about, let me know. Much the same, if anybody's messed with coilovers on it, give me a shout, let me know what's good and what's bad, because I've got no idea, and I don't really want to put something that's not adjustable on. I'd like to level it up a little bit. It's a little bit higher at the front, and the original ones are pretty shit, pretty knackered, and I know the new ones you get haven't got the adjusters on, I don't think. So yeah, I'll see you next time.